for Marcus, and Marcus is an experienced user of iNaturalist, and he's going to kind of walk us through the basics of the app for those of us that aren't familiar, and how to make observations, and tips on how to do that well and take good photos. And then I guess after that, I'm going to talk about a couple of projects that we have with the Conservancy, two that are sort of ongoing, and then one or a couple other ideas, I guess, that we have on how to take this further going forward. And then we have Brian here, who's the Director of Planning and Advocacy for the Conservancy, and he's going to dive into some real specifics about their Managed Meadow program, because that seems like an area that would appeal to this group. And then we asked Emily from Western New York Prism to talk briefly about her group, which focuses on invasive species, and certainly there's no shortage of them to work on in the Olmsted Parks. And then Z, who's kind of running the command center over there, is going to close us up and talk about some cool prizes we have and ways to sort of stay engaged going forward. So with that, Marcus, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself and take it away?
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus Rosten. I am an aquatic ecology teacher with Buffalo Public Schools. I've been a naturalist for a while now, and I've been using iNaturalist throughout the various places that I've been working, teaching environmental education, and just personally, I absolutely love iNaturalist when I am just going out in the woods, going outdoors, to be able to help put names to the things that I see. The cool thing about iNaturalist is you don't need to know everything to be able to identify something, especially when you think about how much diversity of life there is. And we can only know so much. If we study all of our trees, if we study all of our fungus, then there's a whole group of birds that we don't know, and all these other groups of animals. It's hard to master them all, and I love iNaturalist as a way to help give names to those things, and then also help keep a nature journal of what I'm seeing. So it's also cool too to be able to collaborate and do cool projects like this by crowdsourcing all of our observations. So what I'll be doing is describing what iNaturalist is. So iNaturalist is a website. It is, let's see, let's share my screen. It is a biodiversity project, essentially, that's been around for, I think 2008 was when it started. And it really started catching fire more recently. And it's the perfect companion for exploring our local environment. So let's see. Oh, I'm actually on the Bio-Blitz page, but to use iNaturalist, you need to create an account, which is pretty simple. After you create an account, it will bring you to your homepage that looks like this. Now, what iNaturalist does is it collects observations. An observation is made up of a couple of different components. You need to take take evidence of an organism, combine that with a time, a date, and a place that you saw it. So what I usually do is I go out in the field, I go for a walk like I did this morning. To get ready for our presentation today, I actually got up and went over to Riverside Park, right on the Buffalo-Tonawanda line, and I went to collect some observations to share with you today. When I go out, I always take along with me my camera. It's a Wi-Fi point and shoot camera. I always have my phone with me in case I could take photos of something that are close by, or I need to look things up, or I need to use the iNaturalist app, which is another option to use iNaturalist. I'll be showing the computer first. And I always have my binoculars, which doesn't really help with iNaturalist, but helps you see birds. So I went out in the field, I used my camera, and I took a bunch of pictures of different organisms that I wanted to log. So now what I do is I came back here, I'm at my home, I plugged my SD card into my computer, and now I logged into iNaturalist. I'm ready to log my observations. On my homepage, I have this big old green button over here. It says upload. Pretty simple. You click on it. And at any time anybody has any questions, feel free to yell them out or if I go too fast. So you choose your files that you want to upload. Go to your camera files. We can see, actually, I don't know if you can see my file explorer, but he's got some of the photos from my walk today. So I'm going through now, and I'm adding my evidence. Your evidence on iNaturalist can exist in two primary ways. The way iNaturalist works is you are logging your observation onto this website, and then other people are able to go on and see what you're observing, and they can verify what you're seeing. So when you're uploading evidence, you want to be able to have proof that you saw that organism. The two main ways that we can collect evidence is by taking a photo or by collecting sound. You can actually record sounds of organisms, things like bird calls, owl calls. You can actually use that as proof on iNaturalist as well. So I'm collecting a couple of my pictures here. Let's see, I only picked out the birds. I want to show an observation that wasn't a bird too. And let's see. All right. So I threw in my 3 photos that I wanted to upload. The cool thing about a lot of our cameras nowadays is that it starts to collect some of that, what we call metadata, when you automatically put your photo in. So as you can see, I dropped in my photo here of this bird that I saw today. Got pretty lucky this morning on my short walk. I was able to find this hawk. I dropped it in. iNaturalist was able to pull the date and time from my observation this morning. So now I need to help fill in the rest of the details. The cool thing about iNaturalist now is that you can click in your species name, and it actually has photo recognition software built into the program. It can help identify your photo for you based off of that photo recognition software. So what it does is it gives me some recommendations on what I found or what I saw. It's pretty sure that I saw a hawk, at least in the genus of Buteo. And there it gives you its top suggestions for Buteo, things that are visually similar. Well, what you can also do is, before you do this, is actually add in your location. And it will, if you add in your location, it will actually help the photo recognition software be more accurate. So I'm gonna go up here, I'm gonna type in where I saw these, Riverside Park, Buffalo. It's gonna zoom me in and give me my little radius circle, which I can adjust and make as accurate or as broad as I would like. I know that I saw that hawk over in this tree right here. Double click, put my circle. I am pretty sure that it was right in that tree, so I'm gonna make it a pretty small radius circle. And I'm gonna update my observation. Now I have a piece of evidence, my photo of a hawk. I have my time, I have my place. Let's see if I can get a name. If I didn't want to venture a guess as to what the species name was, I don't have to put a name up at all. I can just say that I saw an organism up there. If I wanted to narrow it down, I can say that I saw a bird up there. And it's gonna be in the class A's. You can make it as specific or as broad as you feel comfortable. Or it can help this software. So now that I actually added a location, it narrowed its suggestions down, and it tells me that the photo that I have is visually similar to a red-tailed hawk, and red-tailed hawks have been seen nearby. I feel pretty confident in my skills as a birder that I did see a red-tailed hawk today. So I am going to click red-tailed hawk and make that a full observation. And there we go. I can submit that observation, and it is now cataloging that organism, saying that I saw this particular bird at this particular place at this particular time. And now that is going to be put into iNaturalist, and other people can see that and confirm it. You don't have to always get photos of birds or like the actual organism. You just need evidence of an organism. This is another photo that I saw this morning of some scat. Probably some of our favorite scat to find in our parks, because it's definitely plentiful. But it's also pretty characteristic, right? We can look at that scat. I also found this feather nearby, so I put that in the photo too, to give some clues. Anybody have a guess as to what I saw, or at least saw evidence of?
The Canadian geese. I don't know, maybe.
I agree.
I would say that's a pretty good guess. All right, well, let's see what iNaturalist thinks. Oh, wait, iNaturalist is actually suggesting I saw a grass. So this is where is a good example of why you also can't rely on that photo recognition software to identify these things, because, you know, it's only as smart as a computer is. Let's see, I'm gonna add my location and actually look at, it starts at where I saw that other organism that I saw this morning, that red-tailed hawk. I saw this goose. Whoa, yeah, I'll give it away. You were right. That is scat from a Canada goose. Great job. I saw that right here. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was right here. I'm going to make this circle broad and say it was in this general field. There was definitely enough scat in that field. And I am confident enough that I'm going to just type in here, Canada goose. Boom. And now my last thing I saw happened to be a plant. I saw my plant. Zoom in. There are a couple of dirt circles left behind. It looks like some trees were removed right here, and this plant was able to colonize right in that disturbed soil. One thing that we do want to keep in mind too, when we're looking for species to log, is we don't want to log things that are planted gardens, that are ornamental gardens, I should say. Our restoration projects, things where we have native plants growing and things like that, are great. But things that we have, you know, tulips growing in rings around signs, there is an option in iNaturalist where you can say that this is cultivated and this is planted, so disregard this from those from like those overarching biodiversity projects, which is an option, but I tend to stay away from it. So we can, sorry, I identified this while I was talking. So then this photo recognition software is helping me with plants. I do rely on the photo recognition software to help me narrow down my plants. What it is really great at doing too is at least getting you close. So what you can do is, now that it gives me these suggestions, I could click view more, or view, to be, I feel like this is a mugwort, but I'm not totally sure. Well, actually remind me what mugwort is again, and if I've seen it in my area. So you can actually click on that view tab, and it will pull up the species page for that species. And you can see a whole bunch of different stats about it. You can see, you know, photos of it. You can scroll down. You can see when it was last observed, how many observations, the seasonality. This is what I think is really cool. You can look at the phenology of the plant. When it's most active, when people are most observing it. Let's see, look at our plant phenology. This is when people, you can add extra tags to your observations, and you can say that you saw that mugwort while it was fruiting, budding. Looks like people aren't using that feature as much, so it's not making as pretty of a graph. But it's really cool too, because then you can see actual photos and maps of where this species is being observed. Look at this. This mugwort, being an invasive species, is found most places that you find humans. So I can feel pretty confident that this species growing in that disturbed soil is probably a mugwort. So I got my trifecta species. I'm ready to observe, to upload them. What I can do is, like you can see on the left here, here's that button that I was talking about, where I can click captive or cultivated, and you can let iNaturalist know that that species was planted purposefully. You can add other tags too on the side. You can add it to specific projects if you would like. Like, say I wanted to add it to Buffalo. Well, actually, you don't have to add it to Buffalo Olmsted Biodiversity Project because it's magic. You'll see. So I have all the information I need. I'm ready to submit my observations. So now I'm on my dashboard. This is my home page. And I can see those observations were put in. And this yellow tag over here shows that they need ID. Now, what happens with that observation is it gets sent into iNaturalist, and other people are going to log in. They're going to get notifications and say, hey, Marcus saw some new organisms. Why don't you go and check and confirm what Marcus saw? So then what you can see here, some observations that I've seen previously, is people will confirm your observations and they will make it what we call research grade. Once an observation is research grade, it is then understood to be a confirmed observation, a confirmed sighting, and then that can be used for scientific research. There are a bunch of different global biodiversity databases and networks that pull species observations from iNaturalist. When I used to work for the Fish and Wildlife Service, and I used to write ecological risk screening summaries, we would look at the individual species, figure out what their distribution is across the globe, and try and rate how invasive they were. One of the databases that it pulled from was iNaturalist. So it's really cool that this program is able to put a species up. Once it gets verified, it actually is used for that hardcore science aspect. Question?
How many verifications do you need before it becomes research grade?
That's a great question. Usually it is one. Usually you need one other person. Let's see. This was a cool one I saw recently that actually didn't know what it was when I saw it, and iNaturalist is what helped me identify it. Typically, you need at least one other person to verify what you saw before it becomes research grade. It gets a little bit more specific when there are some disagreements. So like if you have people that disagree with you, then it kind of ups the amount that you need in order for it to become research grade. But this is an example of an observation that I saw last week at the new Western New York Land Conservancy Nature Preserve on Grand Island. And I had no idea what this was. I just saw what I knew was some kind of insect gall growing on a tree. But besides that, I didn't know it. So what I did was I just took a bunch of good pictures of it from a bunch of different angles. I made sure I got different aspects. So remember that when other people are verifying these observations, they don't have any of the context that you have while you're on site. You need to try and collect as much visual information as possible for them. So when I'm taking a picture of a gall, I'm not just taking a picture of the gall, I'm making sure that I get the acorn for the tree it's on. I make sure I get photos of the leaf to show that it's a pin oak. And all of that helps somebody else get on here and let me know that I saw a horned oak gall wasp. And it was really cool. I got to go learn more about that species. But to answer your question, yeah, if you have one other, at least one other, so let's see, down here. Sorry for my sporadic zooming, if that makes everyone sick. So you can see that I suggested it because iNaturalist helped narrow me down. I busted open the books and I made sure that I felt comfortable. I said, that's what I think. Somebody else confirmed it, and now it's research grade. So you need at least 2/3 of the observations to be of the same. Yeah.
Is it fairly intuitive how to add more than one picture to a single observation?
Oh, that's what I probably should have demonstrated, huh? It is. Let's see. I'll add one more observation that I can show you. So I'm just jumping in my files, go over to my computer, go over here. I'm going to, so this is, let's see. I actually saw a weird gull while I was at the park today. I think it was a gull, I'm not sure. We'll see. I saw this photo, but then I also took, so what I'm doing here is I am clicking and I'm now holding control, well, let's see. I'll open one photo, I'll drop it in there. Oh no. So I was supposed to do it at the other step. I'll be honest and say that I actually primarily use iNaturalist on my phone now. And when you're on your phone, it's really easy to select multiple photos at once. But I'm thinking that what I need to do is add photos and sound. And while you're in this stage is select multiple photos. Great question.
I think on the phone, it's basically like a plus sign with another window. So you would just add the other photo.
Yeah, it's super easy on your phone.
The other nice thing about the phone is that, you know, the location is automatically geotagged, so you don't have to add that separately.
That's also why I absolutely love using my phone. So let's see, I just control clicked multiple photos and it's adding them like this. So, here we go. Sorry, I gotta let my computer load. What I can do is select multiple of those photos. It's all of the same organism, and I'm gonna combine them. So while you upload all your photos into here, and then you can, I held control and I selected each one on screen, made them green. And then up here, you have the options to remove, add, or combine. And I just combined all those photos into one observation. And then now I'm gonna identify based off of that. It's telling me it's a green ash. That's not true. But that would be how you do that.
I noticed on the goose scat that it didn't say goose scat, it just said goose, right? So could you type in scat? That
No, so that's a great point. When I updated the goose scat, I am not labeling the photo for what I see. I am labeling it for the species that it is evidence for. So you can also take photos of things like tracks. If I saw a really good raccoon track in the mud, I could take a photo of that track and say, I know for a fact that a raccoon walked through here. So it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily need to like label it as the exact evidence that you're seeing, and that I'm seeing raccoon scat, but you can label it, it was right in this tree. But it will just say, the species that it was for.
okay, thanks.
I did a skull recently and it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like the nice thing is then now you have just if you were like look at the species page and stuff, you'd have a bunch of different ways of looking at the same organism.
Okay. Oh, it wants me to label this more. So I know that this was on a box elder tree. Open box elder. Upload it and see if anybody else has any advice. So, upload. Now I can go and look at my observation. And the cool thing is that, like I said, this is almost like your ongoing nature journal. Not only is it cool just to log this for science, but like this map on the right, you can see is all of the different observations that I've made in the area. So I can like go back in and see, oh, what did I see back in Rochester then? Or what did I see up in Watertown? And it just always like kind of keeps that information for you. There's actually a cool calendar option. We'll break down like what you saw on what calendar date of the year, and really cool options like that. So just in terms of keeping personal nature journals, it's really fun. So this is our goose observation. It's on Need ID. Hopefully somebody else is going to feel as confident looking at that goose scat and photo and feather as I did. So what we can see down here is what projects, what projects that observation was added to. You can join different projects with your iNaturalist account that will help your observations be submitted to other projects, or other projects sometimes are set up just to collect that information depending on the location at which you log it in. You can see here that this observation that we just added was automatically logged to this super cool project. So just by going for a walk this morning, collecting that photo, adding it to iNaturalist with a couple of that data, it gets automatically added to a project. And different projects can be set up in iNaturalist for different purposes. This one, because we took a photo within our Olmsted Parks, was added to our Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy Biodiversity Project. And you can see here, our observations that we just put in were all automatically added just because of the location at which we logged it. Some projects are different than others. Some you have to specifically select to send that project to there. And there are cool projects literally for anything. One of my favorite ones is logging roadkill along highway corridors. Is when you see something dead on the side of the road, you can run out of your car, take a photo of it. It helps researchers study roadside collisions, and it's like collecting that information for scientists forever. And I feel like it's helping make use of a really sad situation. But projects can be made for pretty much anything. And I feel like it's that's another fun way of almost gamifying while you're outside and just looking forward, on your normal nature walk. I don't know if Rob's going to go more specifically into our biodiversity page, but you can see that just by putting that observation in, you don't need to do anything special, as long as that observation has been made in an Olmsted Park to be added to our project that we're talking about today. Anybody have any questions, I guess, about iNaturalist using the web portion? Like Rob said, there's also an iNaturalist app, which I could show if you would like. It's pretty much the same thing in the same way, in that you download the app, you add your account, and it's really intuitive. There's a camera button right at the bottom that you click on your camera roll. You can select multiple photos in here. You select done. And it's pretty much set up the same way as we did on the page, where it's going to ask what you saw. And you can use the photo recognition software to help it narrow your choice down, or you can type right in what you saw. And the cool thing about your phone is that it's way easier because you don't have to add in, like Rob said, any of the location information. Your phone collects the location information. Your phone collects the time, the date. You literally just have to add photo, put it in, say what you think the photo is, and click share. Then in that time, that's all it really needs. And then you just send it right in, and it's added to our biodiversity project.
Marcus, do they charge you for it?
Great question. No, it's absolutely free.
Oh, good.
Free to have an account, free to make an iNaturalist, and to download the app as well.
So again, I'm the multiple pictures. It seems to me it would be better to, on the phone, to take the multiplicity of pictures and then go into the app and select them from the photo roll rather than taking the pictures in the app. Is that?
Yes, that is a good point. I never take any of the photos in the app.
Okay.
I always take all of the photos on my phone camera roll. And I usually never use iNaturalist. Well, that's a lie. I use iNaturalist in the field when I see something I don't know and I want help right on the spot and be like, I want to know what that is. But for things that I already know and I'm just collecting the information for, I often just go around, I'll take all the photos, and then I'll get home, I'll sit down, and that's when I'll open my phone up and I'll go and I'll add in, all of the photos. And that's when it's really easy to take multiple photos, because I don't know about taking multiple photos in the app. That's a great point.
All right, are there any other questions for Marcus before we sort of move on to a couple other things and wrap up? All right, why don't you stop sharing the screen, Marcus, if you could. So thanks for that. That was outstanding and thorough. I guess one thing I might mention is there is a way to obscure the location of your observation. And an example of a situation where you might want to do that would be like for mushroom hunters who don't want people to come and take all their chanterelles, but also for something pretty rare that maybe you didn't want someone to come and collect. And not just plants, right? Like the Blattner's turtle would be an example.
I've done it with like deer fawn as well too, of like you find like I've stumbled upon a young deer fawn in the middle of a park and it's like, oh, I want to log this for location, but I don't want other people to try and come up and take cute photos after they get the notification. So
yeah, it's basically like a check mark in the upload process that you do that with. So I just want to talk about a couple projects that we are working on and a couple ones we'd like to work on. So Marcus covered the Olmsted Biodiversity project, which is what the app calls a collection project. So it's sort of like set it and forget it. And you can, if you're setting up your own project, you can determine all kinds of parameters, right? And that's, and this one is pretty much everything. So all taxa, plants, animals, fungus, everything. And also observations even before I set it up. So historic observation, because we were just kind of curious. And I guess the other unique thing about that one is that it's the 6 large Olmsted Parks grouped together in one project. So it's like a saved search for all 6 of those projects. And we just kind of thought it'd be interesting to sort of brand it with Olmsted, but also keep a life list for the parks, because people can have their personal life list, but we thought it'd be cool to have a Olmsted Parks life. So that's out there and you can sort of see the leaderboard and stuff. But we also thought it would be fun to have a project to kick things off this fall. And so we just set up Olmsted October Bio-Blitz project, which starts basically at the end of this webinar. And I wanted to show it, and I'm having a moment. Really pretty fine with using Zoom, but at the moment I'm not seeing the screen. Oh, there it is, that I wanted to share. Okay. So so here's the October one, and Z's going to talk later about some prizes that we're going to have, but basically we want the folks to go out, learn how to use the app through the month of October, and at the end of it we're going to award a prize, couple different prize levels, and then we'll hopefully have a group of users that are familiar with the app and interested in the Olmsted Parks, and then we can do more. So I guess the more part would be what they call traditional projects. And that's what Marcus touched on, which there's projects where it's not automatic, and it's because you have a real specific thing that you're looking at. And so an example that Z and Brian and I sort of came up with was we have these managed meadow areas in several of the parks, and it would be interesting to know what kind of vegetation, and maybe not just vegetation, but particularly vegetation are there. And the mapping sort of feature, or the sort of a way to select an area in a project isn't specific enough for us to say, well, this is going to collect everything in this managed meadow, because they're kind of small, right? And so we would then need the user to actively upload it and confirm that, yes, this observation was from one of the managed meadow areas. And then I guess the other thing that we thought might be useful in the future would be invasive species. So there isn't really a way to do a collection project for invasive species, because it's not a super precise term. Somebody's idea of an invasive species might be a little different from somebody else's. And so it's not like you can just check a box and say this is invasive. But, you know, through the Olmsted staff, we can kind of come up with a list of priority invasives and encourage our iNaturalist users to upload them to a project just on that. And so if either of those things sound interesting to you, let us know, and we can kick it off, or heck, you can do it yourself and start your own project, and we can work together on it. So with that, I think we've covered everything I wanted to cover on iNaturalist and what we're doing, but there's a couple more things before we wrap up. And I mentioned Brian is going to talk about the managed meadows in a little bit more detail, and then also a volunteer opportunity that sort of is a little separate from iNaturalist, but could be related. So Brian, why don't you go ahead and tell us about it?
Okay, hi everybody, that was very interesting. Thanks a lot, Marcus. I'm going to share my screen. I'm gonna, come on. Shoot, I was really hoping I could say I did that a lot smoother than Rob, but I didn't actually do it too much smoother than Rob. So I'm gonna go in here. Okay, so just to kick off, thanks again for everyone helping out with this Olmsted initiative and using iNaturalist. But the Conservancy, for those of you who don't know, is a nonprofit organization who's in a public-private partnership with the city of Buffalo to take care of some of their city parks, specifically the ones designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, a very significant landscape architect who designed a lot of wonderful parks and public spaces all around the U.S. What we're doing here is an initiative within our maintenance practices that we're calling managed meadow areas. We're actually looking for a new name, or a more sort of catchy name. If anyone has any ideas, we're open to ideas on that. But like really, what that is, it's an idea about sustainability and kind of reducing our mowing, how much mowing we have to do around the parks, which is not only good and efficient for our workforce, but also good for the environment. It's also working towards restoration of the parks. A period of time, maintenance became pretty much just mowing lawn. So it's like everything you could mow, you just mowed it and mowed it and mowed it. But Olmsted designed parks with a lot more diverse landscape types, from meadows to parkland areas to woodlands, and really trying to bring some of those back through this effort. But also there's great ecological benefit to sort of having more of these sort of diverse landscape areas other than mature trees and lawn. How we do that is pretty easy to start with. You just stop mowing, which is very easy to do. But then the important part is the follow-up, which is sort of managing what grows up. And we hope for a lot of sapling trees of mature oaks in the area that have their acorns in the ground to pop up. Wildflowers, those are great, and we're always surprised at what comes up that way. But unfortunately, a lot of times what comes up are invasive species. Not only your sort of herbaceous ones like mugwort we saw, but also things like buckthorn is very prevalent, and that is you really got to hand it to these invasive species. They're really great at what they do, but it does become problematic if you just basically do that first step and stop. So we have a pretty regimented plan in place for seasonal work that our staff will do, which is sort of annual mowing of these areas. But we can really use a lot of help in that regard in the some of the invasives that have really taken off, volunteer projects to do that. But the real key is every fall, and so getting to the real project is going through and identifying the good stuff. And I think this iNaturalist app at a very baseline is going to be super valuable. But also a lot of our staff, they're good at doing the work, but they're not necessarily great at the ID part. So we've got certain staff that we work with, myself and we've got our forestry manager and a few others who can do that. But more hands, more eyes really help out. So using the app, but also we're talking about some opportunities to maybe get together or on your own do some flagging of like little oak saplings and things that come up. So leading into that, as Rob mentioned, we've sort of got spots all over the park system, but we want to focus on 2 spots, which is Delaware Park, Meadow, and MLK Park. So we've identified a lot of our existing MMAs. Here's the Delaware Park Meadow, but up at the north side, right along Amherst Street, we've got a couple meadow areas that we've sort of let go for honestly too long at this point, and need to kind of come in and clear them out a little bit. But up along Amherst Street, down along south of the zoo, along Parkside Avenue, and then down right across from Meadow College along the 198. Couple areas here, and then over in Martin Luther King Park, kind of scattered around the perimeter of the park. I think I can use you can see my little arrow thing. So up along Northampton, over by the greenhouse, over so closer to the Science Museum on the south side, and these are areas that are in place, and I think we're hoping and thinking about maybe I don't know if we've locked this in, but like next Saturday, if people are interested, I don't know how we're handling this, Rob, but I just sort of announce it now, but I'm doing it. So, so the idea would be we could plan a little group tour to sort of get things rolling. Again, sort of starting up near the zoo and Nichols, heading over to closer to Meadow at Agassiz Circle, and then down to Martin Luther King Park, and we can take a walk, sort of see these MMAs, and sort of plan from there this fall, based on the interest, an opportunity to sort of get out there as a group or individually, and basically at this point, flag the good stuff, because next spring we're going to come around with our brush hogs and we're going to mow these areas down. And what we don't want to do is mow down the good stuff that isn't perennial, the sort of woody plant material. I think that's everything I was supposed to cover, but sort of, we think it's a great project. Our staff has really bought into it and is excited about all the great benefits, to one, not mowing as much, but also all the sort of ecological benefits that come with these areas in addition to the restoration. So we're excited about it, but again, more help we have volunteer wise, the better, because our staff can only do so much. But I think it's a great project, and we think this group of people, if you're interested in working with the iNaturalist app, you're probably interested in this sort of stuff. So we were really appreciative of Rob to pull it all together, and Marcus as well.
All right, so thanks, Brian. And I think when Z wraps up in a few
I
minutes.
think Caroline has a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Just wondering if this project runs beyond October, or is it just the month of October?
We're really focusing in on October because we want to identify things while they still have their leaves. I think beyond that, I mean, I guess we'll do it as long as we can this year, but I think the initiative is going to be ongoing. So next spring, helping out, we may, I know it's a lot of good part of it is sort of seeing what comes up, but I think, knowing our Western New York natives, we like to introduce not only little saplings, but also perennials that are gonna, sow their seeds and spread. So we might do planting projects. And again, yeah, this would be something that would be ongoing volunteer opportunities throughout the year.
And should we look for details for next Saturday on the website, the Conservancy website?
Yeah.
She's going to be sending out an email
Okay.
early next week to once we sort of finalize all those details. You'll expect to hear from Z.
Yeah. And just to sort of clarify that, I think next week that'll just be like a walk, it'll be like an hour long, check them out, see where the areas are, and then, come back at your leisure, or again, we, depending on the interest, we might just start setting up some group projects.
Excellent. Any other questions for Brian? All right. So Brian, why don't you stop sharing?
Oh, sorry, I have to do that, don't I?
And before we wrap up, we asked Emily from Western New York Prism to attend, and she was going to talk briefly about her group and their focus on invasive species. And then we all can start to think about ways that we might be able to collaborate in the future. So Emily?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for letting me come on and plug Western New York Prism real quick. So I'm Emily Thiel. I am Western New York Prism's Education and Outreach Program Manager. And Western New York Prism stands for Western New York Partnership for Regional Invasive Species Management. We are one of 8 partnerships across New York State. And our overall mission is just to prevent and minimize the harm caused by invasive species to New York State's environment, economy, and to New York State's citizens' human health. So we talk about invasive species all the time, 24/7. I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time, but if you're interested in learning more about invasive species, definitely check out our website. It's just westernnewyorkprism.org. We have a bunch of invasive species profiles. So if you're interested in learning about what's invasive around Buffalo, what's invasive around Western New York, definitely check that out. We also have a fall webinar series coming up. So if you're interested again in learning more about invasive species, check that out. The first one is October 15th. And that kind of ties in really well. It's talking about dormant season identification and prevention. So if you are interested in identifying invasive species a little bit past October, when all the leaves fall off, it's still possible. It's a little more tricky, but it's definitely still in the realm of possibility. I definitely recommend checking out that webinar. They are on Thursday afternoon, so if you're unable to attend, we are going to record those and post them on our YouTube page. So if you can't make it, definitely still check that out. And then lastly, follow us on social media if you want. Our Facebook page is Western New York Prism, and our Instagram is Western New York Prism 8. We put out events and stuff like this all the time. So if you're interested in learning more, not just from Western New York Prism, but for Buffalo Olmsted Parks, we work with Western New York Land Conservancy, Waterkeeper a lot. So we kind of keep our pulse on invasive species stuff going on in the area as well. And if you just have questions, just feel free to email us anytime too.
All right, super. Thank you, Emily. And yeah, if you could send some details on those webinars to me and Z, we can help share them as well. And thank you for sharing this with your
Also, a
group.
cool pro tip: if you become an advanced iNaturalist user, they can actually link it over to IMAP invasives and have your iNaturalist account go into an invasive species database. But that's beyond beginner's class. But great way to collect invasive species info too.
Cool. All right, so our plan was to keep this to an hour, and we've succeeded. So Z is going to sort of wrap things up. Z is the communications specialist with the Conservancy, and she's going to basically be our point of contact going forward with this project as it evolves and improves going forward. So Z, thanks for all your work on this, and why don't you close us off?
Sure. Thank you so much to Marcus, Rob for hosting this, and to everyone who joined us today. We are very thankful. So for this October Bio-Blitz, which we're starting off in October, but like Rob said, Rob and Brian said we may continue on depending on the weather and all that. So for the month of October, though, we will be giving a $25 Urban Roots gift card to like anyone who makes an observation. You'll be entered to this drawing to win a gift card. And for the person who makes the most observation, this is an incentive. We'll also give you a $25 gift card. And for anyone who joined this who participates in the October Bio-Blitz or basically make an observation in the month of October, we'll send you something in the mail. So you can wait for that. Hopefully that's something which can encourage people to get engaged and participate in this activity online. So you can tell your friends and families as well. And so if you have any other questions on the Olmsted Parks Conservancy, feel free to email Brian or myself. I'll be sending out an email again with all the links that we talked about today. There's some in the chat in the Zoom call. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you.
Bye.